Well. If it isn't Mikey, we've stolen an hour of his time yet again. I'm sure you've been flat out, mate, just punching loans out and all sorts, buying cryptocurrency, no doubt. Who knows what you've been up to?
Oh man, she's an interesting time at the moment. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, we'll get into some of that. I'll wait for some people to tune in as well. But are you still finding enough work for yourself out there, mate?
The latest rule changes from the governments, we definitely noticed a drop off.
Yeah.
So it's quite annoying because it was cool for the business to just be doing what it was doing. Now I sort of got to go and work a bit harder. Reminds me of starting out again. No,
Yeah.
it's not like that, but it's noticeable drop, eh?
I'll show you this, mate. I'll pull this up on screen here. It says housing crisis. Those two words are probably some of the most used words in the New Zealand vocabulary at the moment. Average New Zealand house price now above 900,000. No sign of slowing down. QV. Thoughts?
There's definitely going to be sign of slowing down.
Oh,
yeah, but also, it's like these rules that have come in. I feel like might just be the start of it. Like if I'm going to go out and put a prediction out there, I think even higher LVRs for investors might be coming, taking away more of what the government calls tax loopholes and things like that from people. And I think the investor side of it, I mean, it sounds like rent controls are getting talked about down at the Beehive nonstop, you know. Yeah. So I think taking the investor stuff out of it, they're really trying hard to do that. And I think what you'll find is that it won't actually change house prices too much. It'll have like a slow period. But the only thing they can do to make house prices go down isn't in their control. It's in the Reserve Bank's control, and that's raising rates.
Yeah. And well, we got there already. We got there already.
Yeah.
New Zealand's favourite conversation. What's going to happen to rates? Got any Mikey predictions for us? Is you famous for?
Yeah. So, man, I've written a couple of articles recently, and in the first one that I started writing in February, I said in it, look, I don't know if my prediction of rates going lower than 2.3% that I called in December for this year would come. And I apologize for getting that wrong. And now I'm right. So I should have just stuck to my gut. So, yeah, at the moment we've got rates falling even more. Like it's pretty stock standard to see 2.25. We're getting 2.19. SBS Bank will do it for first home buyers as well. So like 2.19 is crazy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like the talk of the one might start coming back in, you know, if they keep needing to suppress these short-term rates. And that's not the way to slow down the housing market. That's only going to do one thing, you know, like as long as the debt's cheap to do it, people love houses and they'll buy them.
So on this, like this is a bit geeky about economics, but if the price of like lumber and stuff like that is going up massively, because that's part of the argument, right? Is that the costs like inflation is kind of here in terms of things are getting more expensive and it's coming, and therefore the way that we protect ourselves against that is by raising rates. That's like the traditional argument, right? But if we have such a raise in lumber and these types of things that are what we need to build a house, and then the people building the houses go, we can't afford to do this anymore, don't we then just go back down the route of a supply issue?
Like we're not yeah, because I mean that can be a bit of a problem with inflation if it gets out of hand. It means that the end part of the equation of inflation, which is people actually buying the product and using it, starts to shrink. You know, if petrol went to $10 tomorrow, we'd probably use our car a little bit less because it would cost $400 to fill up your car or whatever, you know.
I don't know, mate. Got a fucking bus in Auckland? Jeez.
So, like those kind of things, that's why the word inflation is quite scary to a few people. It doesn't get thought about until it's a problem by like the general public, but it can be quite scary for people, especially like if you're trying to build a house and your cost just went up by 30%. That's scary. You know, it's like that. But the problem is like the trap of it now is that we're so debt based that if prices go up, they need to give out more debt to complete the transaction almost.
Yeah.
Like houses don't get purchased with cash.
No.
They get purchased with debt.
Yeah.
So to continue the demand, so the wood gets paid for and that cycle of money flows into the economy.
Yeah.
That means the debt has to be cheaper. So I think we could go through a period of like house prices, especially new builds, house prices of those going up, with interest rates coming down.
Yeah.
And letting the inflation part of it run a little bit rampant. They've indicated that anyway, the Reserve Bank.
As we were talking about before we went live, right? Like what's going to be easier for the public and homeowners to accept, right? 4% interest rates or 4% inflation?
So yeah, 4% inflation is manageable because if your coffee goes to $7, you just have a little bit less. If interest rates go to 4%, it's catastrophic.
So let's say like $1 million home.
Yeah.
21,900 in interest per year, straight to 40,000. $40,000 of interest.
Net income.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably a $50,000, maybe even a $60,000. Gee, I don't even know. I'd have to gross that up.
It'd be like 54K or something. Pay deduction.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of income. Well, yeah, so yeah, 20K increase effectively by raising the interest rates.
Yeah, not 40, 20.
Yeah, but still as a percentage of your income, like your interest, and then of course you've got to try and pay down your debt. And so then there's whispers that people that are borrowing against their current property to then buy another rental property and you go interest only, right? That they'll look at unwinding that. Are the banks already talking about that for you guys?
Yeah, so the Reserve Bank had conversations around it, and pretty much, like I read the paper that they sent out, basically explaining what they talk about, and it was pretty boring. So we didn't get much out of it, but basically nothing yet. But they're working on it.
Yeah.
The most interesting part was that they kind of indicated that we've got more tools than interest only, debt to income ratios, and interest rates. And the only thing I can think of is if they raise the capital requirements for the banks just for home loans. And then not so tight, make them tighten up on the home lending side of it.
So harder to lend money out.
Yeah, for homes only. Yeah, for mortgages. So in theory, that would mean that they wouldn't stop the business loans and stuff like that, but it would tighten up everything.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one, eh? Like so much of our economy is based around housing now, and I feel like it's growing so much. That sort of market share of our economy has been just owned by housing over the last 12 months. It's pretty interesting. It's a pickle. Like they've got themselves into, like if you want house prices to come down, the costs of that are really bad. And if you let house prices go up and continue to go up at 30% a year or whatever, then you get other problems, with, I guess, inequality and things like that. So
if I heard a guy at a presentation last week talk about how we might have to have a debt reset, and it's something that we've spoken about before. So he was basically saying that we would have to reset the levels of debt in the entire economy. But and people in the crowd were kind of like, oh yeah, like that sounds quite cool. And then I'm like, hang on, isn't the piece you've missed here that would have to basically say, right, well, your property value has to decrease by the value of the debt that we're taking out of the system as well, so that it matches up. So you don't all of it, they just don't just take debt out of, like, I don't know how it's actually going to work, but people, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, just wipe some of the debt and then, we sort of start afresh with less debt. And I'm like, yeah, but you're carrying some of the debt and you're then thinking your house is worth more because it's been inflated by more debt. So we're going to have to bring your property price down to remove some of the debt out of the system too. Maybe that's a bit too over my head.
Yeah, a debt jubilee, it's way too complicated. I don't think they can do that. There's a lot of other things that will happen first.
Cool.
That's a deep one, eh? We can do an hour on it if you want.
Yeah. Maybe I'll probably bore the people out there. Well, is it still possible to buy a house? Like, people coming to you saying, mate, I want to buy a house, and you're helping them do it still.
Yeah, so my argument is, for everyone that says that houses are too expensive and all this kind of thing, is why are they selling in record numbers? So if it's too expensive and too hard, how come there's more being sold than ever? And there's so many different sets of data that you can look at to like be for or against that. But generally speaking, like, if I'm really busy, that means house prices are affordable because, I've got to pay staff to keep up. So one of the interesting things is, if you went and got $1 million mortgage, if you went and got a $500,000 mortgage, I think it was 12 years ago I looked at it, the repayment on $1 million is the same now. So in 12 years, the repayment has stayed exactly the same to double the amount you can borrow from the bank.
Yeah. So you're paying more debt, obviously, and less interest.
You take out more of a loan, double the size of the loan, but the repayment over a 30-year period is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So you still finish the loan in 30 years with the repayment being the same as what 500 costs, because it's such a small part of its interest now.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about saw today that there's more people in hardship, so that's can't afford to pay their mortgage 10% more than last year because those holidays have finished, right?
Yeah, I saw that out of like Credifix or something like that. That's an interesting one. I'm going to wait for a bit more data, just like from the banks or from the Reserve Bank, just to confirm it. Because the last set that I got from the banks was that most of the mortgage holidays had finished and returned to paying their loans. So it's a bit of a reverse there from what I saw not that long ago. So I do want to just check on it. If that is the case, then that indicates that people are in hardship and that the economy is not doing real mint, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
people going through some hard times still, eh?
Oh, for sure.
And like, we can all feel that there's still a bit of uncertainty there, for sure.
Yeah.
If you don't look deeper than skin deep, then you don't really notice it because it all feels good on the street. But the world's still on fire.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we're probably forgetting how lucky we are as such, right? Because I think I saw that UK are only just like getting back to the pub or something, which is just, I probably could do that myself actually if for this last 4 or 6 months. But
you're giving us nice little wine we can tuck into, mate.
If anyone wants to win that, comment Mikey on the stream when you're going to draw. Yeah, he doesn't.
If you get a home loan through me, you can have my wet.
Oh, there you go. I wonder what's happening, mate. It's like, because so many people are looking at the value of their house and then they go like, shit, I'm getting richer each month or each year. And then it's impacting the other financial decisions that they're making. And I'd imagine that if you go to a second-tier lender or like a consumer lender for, let's say, a wedding dress or a finance card or something, they ask you to provide a statement of position. And if you've been a follower of Keep Change over the last year, 52 weeks coming up on Friday.
Ooh.
You know how to do a statement of position, and you'll be putting your house is worth 800K as per this website. Your loan is only 550K. You got no KiwiSaver left anymore, blah, blah, blah. But you're probably sitting on like 250K of equity. And then it's probably quite easy to then get a loan against that to buy consumer products. And I wonder if that's how people are racking up debt against their houses.
It's massive. So I did, before I sort of started being hardcore mortgage Mikey, I used to like dabble with all lending, you know.
You're all in.
Yeah, used to do some car loans and personal loans and stuff like that, just to dip my toe in the water. And basically, if you had a home, you didn't even need to give them pay slips.
Really?
Yeah, like it was like if your name's on a title, you're good to go if you want this 30 grand car. So it's not like that as much anymore, but yeah, it was. There's probably a bit more you have to provide now, but yeah, that home thing, like even the lenders of like consumer finance products treat it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, and it creates this sort of false thing of you getting richer because we've been trained to think of it as our savings account.
Good point. Yeah. And like you say, you can't spend capital gains, right? Like you can probably spend them on another property, or like you've got to find ways to spend them. So you then got to go and try and borrow against it almost.
Yeah.
To then get what you want. But you can't really just roll up to a cafe and go, hey, my house is worth more now. You need to hand me this Eggs Benedict, mate, and I'm not giving you any cash.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. I always say you can't eat and drink capital gain. So if your house goes up fivefold, doesn't improve your lifestyle in real terms.
Yeah. Because your cash flow is still remaining the same. And it's probably quite tight because you're trying to pay that mortgage back.
That's why we love business, right? Because we can control cash flow and grow it.
Righto, mate. Michael Owen, he's just kicked an own goal here. Guardian with the football gag. Might be off topic, but does Mikey have an opinion on investment property versus other investments? Some of the crap, tenants, management, tax changes, damage, maintenance I see on some various forums is crazy. Broad question on different scenarios out there, but it is worth the hassle anymore. Good question. Both have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, cool. I must admit, as I get older and deeper into business and deeper into all things investment-wise, I lean less and less towards rental property investment. I feel like it's targeted here in New Zealand, and it's got a bullseye on it, and they're trying to take it out as well. So I think more and more government control will come in. But also, man, I've owned rental property for 10 years now, and it served its purpose. There was a time when I worked in an old business before I was doing this, and that got sold, and I went for probably like 6 or 8 months without a job because I could, because I had cash coming in.
From the rental?
Yeah. You know, so it's one of the things, because I do talk myself out of it because there are higher yielding investments out there. But it is quite tough to create a consistent weekly passive income in other areas. So if you do have like a 20 or 30 year plan, there's not too many things, without getting super technical, that you just look in your bank account and it's there every week, you know? In terms of the tenants and stuff like that, that's all getting better to the point where property managers are better, the homes have to be in better condition to start with, all of that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I must admit, I lean away from it more and more each day.
Yeah, that's probably because you're in a different vehicle though, right? Like you can, sometimes I have to think, okay, what would someone that isn't in my vehicle, when I say vehicle, I mean like business, so someone that's on a fixed income, and a PAYE salary, like rentals are so easy to understand, right? And it's like so easily teachable and so easily learnable. And so then like more people are going to go there. So I think it'll like it's such a good investment vehicle for people that want to do something and want to try and protect their future, but don't want to study the share market, or they don't want to have to work 80 hours a week and all this sort of stuff. They just want to follow a path that has worked previously and learn it, and hopefully that continues into the future. I mean, I got really excited this year when I got quite a large dividend, and I know I bang on about Heartland Bank every time, but from them, but purely because that's where I've got a bulk of my savings invested. And I was like, shit, that's a week's rent. And I was like, wow, like it would take a long time, but you could break the back of saving, investing into dividend yielding companies, and slowly your rent is being paid for as you grow that nest egg. And I can see, like, it's like almost you need to pick one or something that you like and like really master it and just go after it for 10 years and not, right, I'm going to invest in this for this year, then I'm going to do that. Don't like that anymore, I'm going to jump over there. And that's what I'm writing about for Keep the Change on Friday. Is like the things that I've applied consistency to have always paid the biggest dividends in like every area of my life.
100%. Yeah, it's so interesting, eh? Like when you put effort and time and commitment into something, it's going to work.
One thing I wish we were just like a bit further down the path, but I think it'll come in New Zealand, is that like, if I look into America and the UK, they were way ahead of us with podcasts and learning. And I think what happens after that is you go, sweet, like I've got the free content, I'm happy with this, I want the paid version. And in America and the UK, that's like really, really common, and you've got such a big market to then sell to. And so you can get bigger, and then you can basically build a product and you can sell that product and create a passive income stream every week, every day, and have money coming in. But in New Zealand, we're sort of only at the stage of like, oh, do you listen to podcasts? Like, oh, do you listen to education? That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're not like far enough down. And I reckon there's so many New Zealanders that are doing cool shit that could easily like teach people, you know, how to do something and put it behind a paywall. So for instance, you might be a builder and you might be like, fuck, on my weekends, I'm going to teach you how to build a deck and follow this 20-step program to build a deck. And a builder knows exactly how to do that. But instead of doing that, they go, no, I'll go, and on the weekend, I'm going to go build a deck, and it's going to be a cash job. And I'm going to put it in my pocket. I'm not going to pay any tax on it because that's what I've been taught to do. But if they learn, mate, you could sell that to people that really want to build a deck themselves, and it just sells one a weekend, bang, 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 and you don't need to go and build anymore. Then you got a different income stream. But it's like such a hard concept for people to get, because I just don't think we have enough New Zealanders willing to put their hands in the pockets to pay for that yet. So then people don't go like, oh, I'll go and do it.
Yeah, one of the big misconceptions probably is that passive income means it's like not business. It's something that just sits there and you do nothing completely. But you could own a business that you don't really put effort into and create passive income. You just have to build it up and commit to it for a while, right? Like the guys over there, man, there's some guys that do that subscription sign-up service, you know, to just their content. Like even YouTubers and stuff, like the coolest educational stuff on there that is so valuable. And then you're like, you want that bit more, $20 a month or whatever it is, you know? So yeah, definitely there's some stuff here that, I mean, podcasting and YouTube and stuff so untapped here, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've spoken to a few people about it sort of behind the scenes, and like New Zealand's too small of a market to almost tap into those revenue streams from YouTube, because they're like, oh, you'll never be able to build an audience big enough in New Zealand. You need to go international, which is why you can't do that. Like, you know, there's a number of ways you can.
Across the road.
Yeah, Aussie, UK, like every English-speaking country, you can use as your customer. But we don't really get taught to think like that. We just stick to what we do each day or each week.
Oh yeah. I remember when I was like trying to work out how to buy my first rental property and work out how equity works, so I could leverage it and everything. It was 10 years ago or something. So I went to YouTube like to try and learn more, eh? And there was very little content then around about that, and there certainly wasn't anything from New Zealand or Aussie. Like the stuff that I was looking at was Aussie, and they were calling like home loans 30-year fixed terms, and I was like, this is where, like, how do I work this out? And yeah, it's but yeah, that stuff. I mean, our stuff wouldn't work back over there either. But yeah, it's where I sort of go to get everything now.
Did you watch The Apprentice last night, mate?
I did.
Same, actually.
Yeah, I was good.
Put in the title that we're going to share why you didn't want to go on it, because I heard you got asked to interview.
I'm just too busy, mate. I had to decline. And they were only giving out 50 grand. So if it was 500, I would have gone.
I saw that. I thought, 50K. All right, what?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, surprised me. That surprised me.
What do you think?
Yeah. There was some good wee lessons. Were there? Yeah, there were a couple of good things in there. I don't know if you'd learn too much if you were trying to learn about business, maybe. But I could be cool if at the end they had a summary and they said, "Hey, here's how we think. Like, if you were doing this exercise yourself or at home, like, here's how we think you could master it," and be like, "Bang, this is what the team's missed," and almost get the smart people to say, like, this is what we expected. But I guess the show's not meant to be practical and like a real learning based thing like that. But very interesting that a lot of that reality TV stuff now, by the seams of what I'm picking up, is that you've got to have basically a micro audience to be able to be accepted to go on it. Because a couple of those people that I saw on there, I'm like, oh, I know that chick. Like, she's done interviews with a number of like big personalities from America and stuff, and I've been at an event where she's been like, hey, can I interview you on my podcast and stuff, and she's a keynote speaker herself and whatnot, and I'm like, man, what are you competing on the show for 50 rack for? Like, get out there and make it. But everyone's got their own things that they want to be on or do, but I reckon that TV sort of like lost so much of its audience that they've been having to rely on audiences outside of it to bring them back, because like they did so much social content about make sure you're watching it. But yeah, I mean,
that's a clutch for attention, eh? If you think of it like that, like their attention's drying up and it's moving into other things like YouTube or Netflix or whatever, and they're clutching at those things or where influencers are to try and bring their audience to them.
Yeah, fascinating. Mate, new builds. What's happening in that space? Has that just gone nuts since these different announcements?
Yep. So a couple of things to watch was quite interesting. Obviously, the government's pushing new builds. The thing at the moment is, right, we need to build much more affordable housing. And man, is it coming, eh? It is huge, and there's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of consents being issued, a lot of land still being bought by developers and young ore and all this type of thing. Obviously, a month or two ago, the house price caps for buying a new build by getting the government grant of 10 grand, they went from 650 to 700. Good luck finding one for 650 now.
Yeah, they were what, 691?
Or overnight.
Yeah.
I literally watched it happen overnight, and I said it would happen, but that's fine. The money's cheap to do it. We've even seen a lot of them. You're going to see heaps in that 700 to 800K range now. It sounds like from a few of the people I've been talking to that Kiwi Build might be going into some of the biggest sized houses too. It's sort of a rumor. So they might be doing some 4-bedroom houses and things like that, and like the up to 800K. But yeah, banks stoked with them. They love them. They're quite happy to lend on them. If they're inside certain price caps, like those price caps, you can do it with a 5% deposit. I've actually, over the last couple of months, I've never done so many approvals for 95% lending.
Really?
So a lot. And what's quite interesting is they struggle to buy a house because not a lot of developers will only take 10%.
Yeah.
And they're generally younger, like mid-20s and had a good crack at saving, and they get their Home Start grant and they're away. But it's a little bit hard to find.
Do they have student loans?
Sometimes they do, yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Or like an 80-20 type thing, like 80% of them don't, or 50-50?
Yeah, I don't want to hate on this, but like the kids that have got money and they're young are all tradies and shit.
Yeah, mate,
they're not university students.
building decks, mate. They're building decks on the weekend and they're not paying tax on the
exactly. So, I mean, a young couple that I met with tonight before I came on here were both in hospo and they're just smashing their savings.
Nice.
Just been killing it. Like no qualification, no nothing. They're just going hard. They're saving $1,000 a week combined.
Wow. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
so
they work at trading. Just keep it safe.
That?
They're not risking that in sharesies or anything like that. Just straight cash.
A little bit of sharesies play. Yeah. I think they had about 10 in sharesies. So they're sort of probably, what was the number? About 20% of their probably liquid assets were in sharesies.
Yeah, I feel like the sharesies excitement sort of like calmed down a little bit over the last couple of months. Like less people talking about it. I mean, I'd love to see their growth numbers. I reckon they might have. That's just my hunch, but may have like dropped off a bit, or maybe people are just sort of a bit over talking about it. I don't know.
Well, everyone's pulling it out and buying new builds. So.
True. Good point.
But yeah, the new build stuff's crazy. So it's actually almost a no-brainer to buy one instead, if it's your first home, to buy one of those instead of buying like an existing 1960s two-bedroom unit.
Yeah.
Why would you buy a cold, drafty two-bedroom unit that needs a paint and carpet when you buy a brand new townhouse with double glazing and heat pumps and 2 stories and
talk my language, mate. When I lived in Hara, mate, bought this house that shit. I thought I was in Antarctica one morning when I woke up.
Well, the thing is, right, is it's all very well. Like the reason people would love a 1960s brick and tile unit is because they last forever. And that's true. Except you're not going to live there forever. You're going to sell it in like 5 years and go and upgrade your house anyway. Yeah. So if I was doing the first home buying thing now, 100% new build.
Yeah. So when you say new build, you mean like fresh off the plans, right? Is there some rules around that?
Yeah, there's 2 different types, right? So there's a turnkey and then a progress payment, which is a construction loan where you buy a home and land package, but then when the concrete slab goes down, you pay the builder. When the frames go up, you pay the builder. The common one and the easier one for people to do, and one that's probably a little bit more favorable from the banks, is the turnkey one where you just pay 10% and then you pay the rest on settlement. So you sign a contract for a fixed price of say $700 today, and then you pick up your brand new house in 12 months and move in, and the loan gets drawn down then.
Yeah. Or rent it out. Can you buy one rent it out?
Could you rent it out?
Yeah.
If you've used KiwiSaver, Home Start Grant, or it's a Kiwi build, nah. Okay. So if you do it with just savings, and you need a 20% deposit for that as well. You can't just do it with 10.
Because Daryl says, I'm an owner occupier wanting to buy a rental and feeling like I'm getting squeezed out of the market. Is a property ETF an alternative to build your retirement income? We'll get to that question of his, but he couldn't just go and like buy a new build and get the keys in 12 months. Or like, what would he have to do to be able to buy a new build? What sort of deposit would he need?
Yeah, so new builds are more in favor for Daryl's situation as well, right? So he's getting squeezed probably around the deposit scenario or equity or deposit he's got to use. So if you're buying an existing home for $700,000, you need 40% deposit, right? Because I'm a mortgage broker, I know these off the top of my head. I'm just working that out. That's $280K. So if you were literally, you'd need $280K equity out of your own home or in a deposit to buy a rental, which means what happens is the new builds are exempt from that rule for investors. So investors, if you're going to buy a rental, and it's a new build, you only need 20%. So it's half that deposit, which like if you've had your Auckland home for 3 or 4 years, you've got that.
I see. So they're encouraging investors to build new builds by paying for them, basically, by committing to them.
Supplying the new stock to the market in that affordable range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to borrow against my swanky Green Lane, leafy suburbs property and get a new build in Te Atatu, or perhaps Hawera, if they do new builds in Hawera.
I don't know if they do new builds there.
I'll look into it. But this question from Daryl too: is there a property ETF? And is a property ETF an alternative to build your retirement income? I'd hate to dabble too much into financial advice there, or feel like I know the exact answer to that. But there's different schools of thoughts around ETFs, isn't there, Mikey?
Yeah, we can't go too deep into it, but it's an investment. So it's basically an investment that is using property and leverage and refinancing for different rates, and packaging it up, and then you can buy a portion of it rather than taking out the mortgage yourself and putting the whole lot in. So yeah, it can be used. If you want to be that long on property, then it's up to you. I think there's other stuff out there I would go into, but yeah, definitely.
Like probably Heartland Bank or something. I guess for Daryl as well, like it would then be like trying to figure, when you say I feel like I'm getting squeezed out of the market, trying to figure out what your gap is, so you can figure 100%. Out where you are now, where you're trying to get to, and like what's that bridge you need to get there, because there may be another solution, or there may just be like, righto, we need to hunker down, change some of the outgoings at the moment, and bridge the savings gap, and then get after that rental property if that's your desired goal.
100%, and making sure you understand the numbers, because sometimes buying a $900,000 rental doesn't produce as good a return as like the $700,000 rental. You know, if you're taking out that much extra debt to get it across the line, but it's only returning an extra $50 a week, $50 a week, I mean, as a percentage wise, it's a decrease in your yield. But also think about how hard it is to pay back 200 extra grand, because that has to be done too.
Yeah, it's a fair chunk of change, isn't it? And and then the main, we won't even get into that, but and then potentially with tax rates increasing over time and stuff, and pay freezes, all these types of things that we're hearing. Yeah.
I mean, what Daryl's feeling is LVR rules reinstated and increased. Tax law changes in two ways, with capital gain and what expenses can be on the balance sheet. There's
profit continued,
off the profit and loss, sorry. And there's increases on, certain people in their income tax. There's a whole lot of stuff that's just coming in and just slowly squeezing everything, you know?
Yeah. I think that, like you said before, and I didn't touch on it, but it's almost like rental property investment does have a bit of a target on its back, like you said, and it's even, I saw there's a great story. I didn't actually read it, I just read the title, but I saw the person posting it and know them, the great person, but their journey is to try and stack like a whole heap of rental properties. And they just got smashed on social media, like, oh, greedy, why would you want to do this? Like, who do you think you are? That's what a disgusting approach. You only need one house. So because whether that's right or wrong, or whoever's right or wrong with that, I think if the consensus is that it's harder to get a house, then if you have multiple rentals, you'll probably end up in a society where you are disliked by people as well. So, hopefully you've got the skin that can deal with that, because we may get to a stage where you don't admit it at dinner how many rental properties you have, or whether you have 2 or whether you have 3, because some of the people that you'll have dinner with will be like, I hate you, because that's how they think. Like, I just have to
to all of the 5 million people that have tuned in tonight and watching us, stop hating on people having a crack, eh? Like it doesn't. Like, just leave them alone. Like they're giving it a go. Try it yourself.
Nice, mate. Great advice. And if you are having a crack, and whatever you're having a crack at, then good on you. You know, at least you're having a go, and turn the noise off.
Yeah. I mean, If you're having a go, turn the noise off and don't worry about it. Just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think like realistically, we're moving into a time where the haves are going to have more than the have-nots, and like we're all included in that in some ways, shape, or form. And I'm definitely not like way down the end of having, I've definitely got more than a lot of people, but I don't have, I'm not some sort of like exponential have-er, but there's more friction, I think, between people just because things, as we've spoken about, like inequality and just differences will continue to increase with how much money's moved through the system and where it's ended up. So there's going to be tough conversations for people to have, like when they're watching the news or even just in their own friendship circles.
Yeah, when debt gets this cheap, which has never been before, and you get through the sort of line in the sand, and you're one of the people that's allowed to access it, the gap gets huge, man.
Mm.
Like there's people that can be doing good and trying hard and stuff, but if they don't meet the requirements to access the debt, it's not going to happen. And I think, like you say, we're going to go into a pretty weird time where this conversation about they'll call it inequality, and it will just keep ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. They can stop it. They can rise interest rates, but they won't. There's too much connected to it.
Cool. There we go. Well, I think it's the good thing about what we're trying to do with Keep the Change is to encourage people to just think about this stuff and then go like, okay, what can I do for myself or my family or my friends, or just even just having awareness of like, oh, that's why people might get upset about someone having 2 properties, and then just, I'm going to stay out of this conversation. I don't need to, because I can see what's driving it, because most people just get influenced by what they like, their own situation, and then the stuff that they're consuming, and then continue to go with that narrative, narrative. But there's so many tools and ways that we can learn and educate ourselves now. So we've actually got like a real unfair advantage if we can access that, and like you say, get past and get access to things like education and debt.
Yeah, man. I mean, just having it doesn't matter. Like you can't be like hard work and teaching yourself and then hard work and then just getting shit done. Like if you want something, just make it happen. Make a plan, make it happen. It's like literally that simple for me. But the learning part of it and understanding how to access debt and credit for things is going to be real important over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And using it sensibly for the right stuff, like that's going to be big. Yeah. And actually like making disciplined execution, like taking it. So as an example, with my 15 grand credit card that I had, I was paying it down, but then I would become undisciplined and I would start to extend it again. And I'm like, well, I'm taking the right actions, but I'm ending back in the same situation. I'm like, well, I need to change, therefore I need to change the action. The action needs to be, I pay this down and I decrease the limit. And I think that's the whole area of like cutting up a credit card, right? And things like that. And so in a time credit cards are a sucker's game, because I just pay wave and stuff like that. But if you take credit cards out of your life completely and never have them, your life won't get worse.
Yeah. So what you say, just straight.
Like what's it like? I get like 2 or 3 vouchers a year for the Corrie Lounge. What the shit?
Yeah.
Like if I don't have credit card and don't like, oh mate, I'll get these 10 coffees that we're getting for the office or whatever it is, I could buy a Corrie Lounge pass. So like that stuff is, it's all like a bit of a trap. You just got to use it properly.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I only even, I was on the credit card thing was the big thing when we were at uni. It was like, here you go, you can get $1,000 overdraft. I'm like, how good's this? Interest-free overdraft. Like, I love ASB. Like, how do I not have an account with them already? And then, 2 weeks later, I'm like, shit, need to read the terms. When does this thing have to be paid back? And then I'm like, oh, you can get a credit card. Oh, like, how good is this being stupid? Like, I wonder if they care that I've got a Westpac credit card as well and an ANZ one. And then all of a sudden you're juggling around 3 cards, and you think like look like a fucking magician in the street. You got so many cards you're trying to juggle. So
I think one of the using debt for anything. People, one of the things I want to start pushing more and more, because there is going to be more and more debt as we go down this road, is really understanding debt servicing. So if we knew that houses were going to go up 50% in the next year, we'd do everything we could to try and get a massive loan and buy the biggest one we could, so we can maximize our gain, you know. But you have to understand debt servicing, which is the repayment of the debt you're taking out, and then actually sit down and do your numbers. Like the KTC guys will know, because of they're recording their expenses and stuff like that. They'll have figures that left over at the end of each month, and have a look at what the repayment of $1 million mortgage or something, or a car loan will do to your lifestyle. Like, actually think, right, if I've got $1,000 left a month, or if $2,000 left a month, and another 1,000 is being wiped away for a mortgage or something, really think about what that does. You know, like, it can be ruthless not getting your debt servicing right.
Yeah.
It's actually way more important than the number, like the debt, whether it's $10 million or 100,000, like the debt servicing part and how it affects your lifestyle if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Got to make sure that's right.
The total cash outflow from your account to pay back the debt and the interest. Yeah. So what things, for those that may be tuning in for the first time and they go for a loan, like what things do people need to have a real clear understanding of before they pick up a phone and call a mortgage advisor or even just a bank to buy a house?
Not too much when you come to me. Like, I'll pick you up green as ever. And like, you'll sit down for an hour and walk out more switched on about your scenario. So you can basically just call, and we'll sit down, we'll go through it. We work out, because everyone thinks they get paid 70 grand, but then when you work out their net numbers, they're like, oh, that's not 70. Yeah. And then we look through expenses and stuff. Like, it's a really easy way for people to get their last 12 months of bank statements, and then just month to month look at the number if it's going up or down at the end of each month. And that's your savings or your leftover income for what you do. And then we can talk through all sorts of things like, what's this expense? Why is it regular? And just bring awareness to what's going on, because we all walk around and throw money around like it doesn't mean anything.
Oh yeah, it happens.
You know. So when it comes time to doing a house, just to be aware of that stuff, so you know that you're not going into hardship, because you might be spending a certain amount and really enjoying your life, and if I take 60% of that away from you so you can buy a house, that might be shit. You know, so making sure that you're comfortable with that scenario. So I put that on people in meetings now, you know.
Yeah. Nice.
Hope you like 2-minute noodles, because that's what this means.
What do they say to that? I hate 2-minute noodles.
Yeah, well, we better tone back the lending sort of thing, you know. It doesn't need to be 1.5. Let's do 900 first.
Yeah. I wish someone earlier in my life like grabbed me and shook me and was like, mate, like, it's okay to make more money. Like, think about earning more. Don't just think about saving. Like, think about other flows of income. And I think
there's something in New Zealand when we're young that's about frugal and saving more than making heaps and blowing it.
Yeah. I guess I definitely matched my outgoings to my income anyway. So wouldn't have mattered if more income. You've got to know, you've got to have something that you're aiming for, or like be like, fuck, I'm sick of just blowing everything that I have left over, and like really on a path to something. I feel like younger people might be a bit more in tune with that now, but a bit savvier. I'm sort of doubling down on it to unwind some of the things that I did in my 20s, because I'm like, oh, well, you don't live to 100. Like, this is, maybe I should have started sooner.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think like people our age are probably the worst. Like people older than us were a little bit better probably with the saving type stuff, and the people that are younger than us are more switched on to everything. They've got access to so much more data earlier. We're right in the gap of shit.
Yeah, well, it was like a wake-up call for me about sort of halfway through the year last year with Keep the Change, and someone said, I got some feedback. It's like, this dude's boring, eh? All he talks about like is trying to save more money. Like, I've got heaps of money, I want to know what to do with it. And I was like, shit, okay. 23, 24, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm misreading what's happening out there. So, yeah, that's cool to see.
Man, that's a huge one, eh? I mean, like when I came on your guys' Next Advisory podcast, like I don't know how I'd do it without self-employment. But once you figure out that thing and realize that you don't have to earn a stock standard set income, it's very powerful.
Yeah. There's 2 podcasts for those listening that might be useful. One would be, so it's our Next Advisory podcast. If you search for the What's Next podcast, it's the hashtag What's Next podcast. One with Mikey explaining how he thinks everyone can do it. He just goes deeper into self-employment and his journey. And then there's another podcast called Wait or Stop. What do I actually want for my life? And they've been 2 of our most listened to podcasts, because I think so many people are like, shit, like, what do I actually want for my life? Because often we'll see business owners like going down a path, and then they get to a point where they start getting some financial freedom, and they're like, oh, actually, like, what do I actually want from this? Like, these things are possible. I've broken the back of it. And so I think it's always good for us to stop at times and be like, am I going the right direction? And like, what do I actually want? Because it's okay to want things. And I used to think there was like, you had to be reasonable all the time to things that you wanted, but sort of learned in the last few years, like, it's okay just to want like a nice pair of headphones, and you don't have to give someone a reason as to why you need a $400 pair of headphones or something. Like, you can just, if you want things that are going to make you happy, then, good on you, and figure out what those things are and have a crack at them.
100%, man. It's true words.
Good stuff. Well, mate, thank you as always. Been only a couple of questions tonight, which is good, but plenty of people tuning in, which is also good to see. Friday we'll be hitting people with Money Mail number 52, which is pretty a year. And I actually say this in the email, but before I sent the first one, I said to myself, like, do not send this first one if you're not going to send 52 of these. So this was a little bit of a test to myself as well, doing Keep the Change. Can I stay consistent to it? Because I think, like I said earlier, stickability and persistence has been one of the biggest things that's helped me with a number of different things in my life. And I'm like, right, I need to show some leadership of consistency by even make sure I don't forget to email everyone every Friday morning. And there's been a couple of times where I'm like, shit, haven't hit send on that email.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, mate. It's a credit to you, eh? Very cool. It's like holding yourself accountable to do it, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, because I know someone's going to email me and be like, mate, like, where'd you go? I knew you'd quit. I'm like,
you wrote that accountability email and now you're not even emailing us.
Yeah.
So very cool, mate. I enjoy reading them myself, so it's bloody good.
Good man. Appreciate that. Well, thank you to everyone tuning in. As always, if you need to pester Mikey with any questions, he's way more clued up in this space than I. I've got his email there, mikey.smith@lowmarket.co.nz. I know he's helped a heap of people in the Keep the Change community, which is awesome. So he's always open to getting back to people's questions, and he's not as busy as he normally is. So it might be a good time to be able to get a hold of him, but don't ring him without booking a time, because he might be having lunch with me and I need his full attention, and then his debit card at the end to pay for the bill too.
Yeah, that's right. That's the main part. All right, mate. Thank you very much.
Good on you, mate. Pleasure as always. We will tune in soon. See you, mate.
All right. See ya.